Welcome to the NBA Draft Junkies podcast. It's your host, Rafael Barlow, and today I'm going to talk about the NBA Draft Lottery. Yesterday, the NBA held the tiebreakers, which will determine the order of the picks before the actual ping pong lottery starts, and I think that's probably like the first game of the Western Conference Finals in a few weeks. So first of all, we'll start off with the Knicks. The Knicks did an excellent job of tanking this season and developing some of their younger players to put themselves in position to have the best odds at the number one pick, which will be Zion Williamson. I mean, it would be a total shocker if something changes between now and the draft. Drafting Zion is a no-brainer. He's box office. The Garden already sells out, but now you have like a marquee name that will create fan interest, buzz, sell jerseys. So even if it's just from a business perspective, it makes the most sense to draft Zion right away. I mean, I think coming into the draft, you'll probably be the most anticipated rookie maybe since LeBron. I mean, Zion is, he's the type of player that the New York fans will love. He plays hard. He's a freak athlete. He runs the floor. I mean, most people know him for his dunks and his explosiveness, but there's a lot more to his game than just highlight reel dunks, whether it's the energy, the effort, the shot blocking, the passing, and his ability to create mismatches. So for the Knicks, best case scenario for them this summer is to get the number one pick, draft Zion, and then in free agency you get a Kyrie or Kevin Durant or maybe even a Kemba Walker to go along with last year's first round pick, which was Kevin Knox. And then the Knicks got first round production in their one second round pick in Mitchell Robinson, and then Alonzo Trier wasn't drafted, and he was definitely one of the best rookies in the league last year. Now, how Zion would fit alongside Mitchell Robinson, that would be an interesting fit. Defensively, they'd be a great athletic shot blocking duo. How their fit will be determined based off of the development of their jump shot. I think the floor would be kind of tight. And I also think Kevin Knox in today's NBA is more so of a 4 than a 3. You can't worry about that at this point. You draft Zion, and then you just kind of let the pieces fall into place. Opening night, the Knicks could have a starting lineup of possibly Kyrie Irving, Damian Dotson, Kevin Durant, Zion Williamson, and Mitchell Robinson. Not a bad way to start the season. So the next pick I'll go is R.J. Barrett to the Cleveland Cavaliers. A lot of people probably would say Ja Morant is the second best player in the draft, but I think as far as fit with the Cavs and what they need, R.J. Barrett would be the best choice. There may be concerns about his ability to play next to Colin Sexton, as it would be if they selected Morant, but I'm actually pretty high on R.J. Barrett as a playmaker. I know he gets the reputation for being a ball hog, he doesn't pass, but outside of Zion, he had an outstanding freshman season. I was just overshadowed by the Zion Williamson impact. I think R.J. is an underrated passer. I think he's a good playmaker, and I feel that he'll definitely be a better NBA player than college player due to spacing. And that's saying a lot because I think he had the ACC record for scoring as a freshman. So, if you look at the long history of players that come out of the ACC, which is, in my opinion, the best college basketball conference, and for him to set the record for scoring as a freshman, it says a lot, but he's just been overshadowed by Zion. Colin Sexton had a very good rookie year at the end. I think there are some concerns about whether he's a point guard. I know sometimes I feel like he might be a starting caliber point, but then there's also other times where I feel like he is destined for the Lou Williams 6-man come off the bench bucket getter. I think that's probably the role that he'll be best suited for. But I think RJ is the better playmaker of the two. He has better court vision, and I think RJ sees the floor a whole lot better, and he can make better passes. If the Cavaliers actually did go with RJ and Colin, the key for them is to find that third guard wing player that complements both of them. Next is a no-brainer, Phoenix Suns, Ja Morant. The Suns, there's no way they can screw up this pick. There's absolutely no way. He falls into their lap. He's what they need. They need a point guard. They need a playmaker. They played Devin Booker at point a lot this season, and it would just be beneficial for them to just relieve him of some of the ball handling and distributing duties. Morant, you know him for his athleticism, very good passer. One of the things I like about him is that he can make passes with both hands, and I think he would make life a lot easier for obviously Booker, but DeAndre Ayton, Josh Jackson, a few of those other guys. So they're in a pretty good position, and after this draft, they would have a pretty nice young core. Now it's just we'll see if this core and the talent they have can translate to wins. Next up, I have the Chicago Bulls selecting Darius Garland with the 4th pick. Now Garland, you can actually say that he benefited from his injury. The less scouts saw of him, it may have helped him. I mean, maybe if he finished out the entire season with a higher turnover, with more turnovers than assists, his stock may have dropped a little bit, which he did finish with more turnovers than assists, and it was in the non-conference schedule. But because teams and scouts did not have a ton of footage to go after or to look at, they were able to just more so point out his strengths, which is he's a creative ball handler, he's a good shooter from 3, he's a crafty scorer, and he has a pretty good pull-up, which in today's NBA, with the pick and roll, if you got the big sagging back, he has the ability to make the mid-range pull-up. And I think he could be an effective scorer in the league. Is he the 4th best player in the draft? I'm not sure. But he benefits because Chicago has a pretty solid young core, and point guard is the position where they need the most help in. So he actually benefits from the team selected in the 4th slot, and like I said, the fact that there's not a lot of footage on him that teams can go and judge his game off of. Next, the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks also have a very good young core. Trae Young, who's, he's probably going to be the co-rookie of the year, depending on how they vote. My vote is with Luka, but Trae Young had a phenomenal rookie year. He surprised a lot of people, including myself. Towards the end of the year, he was, I want to say he's putting up like 24 and 9 or something like that. So he's obviously the face of the franchise, and then along with John Collins, who had a great second year. So now what the Hawks need to do is put in pieces that complement those two guys. I think DeAndre Hunter is a perfect fit. He's coming off a national championship. He just does a little bit of everything. I will question how he's going to play in a fast pace. Virginia ran a slow offense, and Atlanta runs a fast offense. It makes you wonder, did he benefit from the slow pace that Virginia played at, or did the slow pace that Virginia played at, did it actually hide some of his skills? So I think Hunter to the Hawks makes the most sense, but they could also look at Jarrett Culver or possibly even Cam Reddish. Next, Washington Wizards. The Wizards, this is going to be a very, very challenging offseason for them. They're pretty much handcuffed into John Wall and his huge contract that actually doesn't kick in until next season. Wall is probably going to miss most of next season due to injury. I think Satoransky is a free agent. The Wizards also have Bobby Portis and Jabari Parker, who will be entering free agency. And those two, they played pretty good for them in the second half of the season. I think Washington should go with Jackson Hayes. Has a lot of potential. He came out of nowhere this year. The Wizards could use a rim-running, shot-blocking, high-percentage vertical lob threat to complement John Wall and Bradley Beal. So I would take Hayes, but then again, they could also look in other directions. They could draft another wing. They could draft Culver. They could draft or even Cam Reddish. But I think they should take Hayes. Next up, the New Orleans Pelicans. The Pelicans should just, which I think they will, totally tear it down. Trade Anthony Davis, see what they can get for Jrue Holiday, and just start all over. It's crazy to think that just a year ago, or a little less than a year ago, this is the team that made it to the second round of the playoffs with a pretty young core, and now they're in a situation due to Anthony Davis being unhappy that they may just need to tear it down. Or David Griffin will be in charge of their basketball operations, and it's kind of rumored that he has a pretty good relationship with the Celtics, and Boston could end up with 2 lottery picks in this draft. So it could possibly be a situation where Anthony Davis goes to Boston, Boston sends a couple of their picks to the Pelicans, and then they could end up with multiple lottery picks in this draft. But I have them selecting CULVER. I think he's the best player available. I like Jarrett as a... he kind of reminds me of Karis LeVert. I like him as a creator, a secondary playmaker. I think he's a very good passer. I think that if you're going to rebuild and start from scratch, he's a good piece to start with on the wing. I think he can play some minutes at the 1 for you. He could possibly play the 3 front court, the 3 backcourt positions. So with the 8th selection, I almost said Vancouver, but the Memphis Grizzlies should look at Cam Reddish. Now, I've watched a lot of film on Cam Reddish. I actually saw him play a couple summers ago at the under-19s, and I thought he was just right under R.J. Barrett. Talent-wise, I think he's a top 5 talent in this draft, but for whatever reasons at Duke, whether it was the fit or playing alongside 2 other ball-dominant guys, he just did not put it together. He did not have the freshman year that I expected, which is why he slid down to 8th. Which for the Grizzlies is a win. Like if someone would have told the Grizzlies that they'd be in position to select Cam Reddish in the draft, they would have thought that, man, we were in position to have a top 3 pick. But the way it pans out, Cam didn't have a great year, and the Grizzlies are in position to select him. I do have a lot of question marks about his game. Is he a shooter? I know coming into college, he had a reputation for being kind of like a point forward. We didn't get a chance to see a lot of that at Duke. And he didn't finish well at the rim. Just statistically, he did not have a good year, but the talent is there. I mean, you watch how he moves, the versatility, he can handle the ball. There's a lot of things he can do. It's just a matter of them putting it together, and it will be up to the Grizzlies player development staff to bring the best out of him and help him maximize his potential. Next up, at number 9, I have the Hawks. Now this is where it can get a little funky. So Atlanta has Trae Young at the point. You got Kevin Huerter, who had a good rookie year at the 2. I have them taking DeAndre Hunter. You can play him at the 3. And then they have John Collins, who is, whether you want to play him at... I know he played the 4 this year, but if they feel like they can play him at the 5, which I think on one hand he can, but he doesn't offer much rim protection. So now, if you look at the draft, who's left, the best players available are pretty much duplicates of what they already have. Now, this is where you want to do. They trade this pick, they try to get a veteran, or they try to move up. But right now, I'm saying with the best player available, they go with Romeo Langford. It's probably not the best fit, but I think that he's a guy that he'll work out well for the Hawks, and then he could be the secondary scorer next to Trae Young, because Romeo is a scorer. DeAndre Hunter can score, and obviously he showed his ability to take over games in the championship game. But I see him as more of a complementary scorer, while I think Romeo Langford, if he ever develops his jump shot, has the potential to be a number 1 scorer. I think the Hawks should look at him and it's kind of redundant on the wings, but I think he's the best player available. With the 10th pick, the Minnesota Timberwolves select SEKOU Doumbouya from France. I think SEKOU is the versatile, defensive-minded or potential defensive star that would be a good fit alongside Karl-Anthony Towns and Robert Covington. I think he would give the Wolves pretty much a defense where they could switch from a lot of different positions. SEKOU's a very smooth athlete. If you ever get a chance to watch him play, his movements are effortless. If he can continue to make strides as a shooter, I think he has the potential to be a very, very good NBA player. He's still young. I think at this point he's only 18 years old, so it still may take a while. The Wolves aren't in win now, or they're not in a win now situation, so they have the benefit of being a little patient with him. But I think he's a very, very good player that will be a great compliment to Karl-Anthony Towns. With the 11th pick, the Los Angeles Lakers. Now the Lakers need shooting. They need players to fit around LeBron James. Right now, they don't have a president of basketball operations, so I don't know what they're going to do. Bol is coming off an injury, but he fills a void that the Lakers need in shooting. The Lakers, let's just be honest, man, they've dropped the ball in their last two young prospects at center. Thomas Bryant had a pretty good year with Washington. Zubac played well with the Clippers, and the Lakers just pretty much gave him away for nothing. I mean, Muscala was supposed to come in and be a floor spacer, and that didn't turn out too well. But Bol has he's probably one of the most unique talents to enter the NBA draft in a while. I mean, you got a guy that's 7'3" that can handle the ball. He can block shots. He can run the floor. Pretty good shooter, but there are question marks. Obviously, he's very, very skinny. His frame doesn't look like he'll be able to put on much weight. So playing him at center, will he be able to handle the banging and the physicality of the game? I have my doubts. I think he struggled with physical players this year in college. But the skill set, I mean, if he just is a trailer or just a floor spacer at 7'3", I mean, you're not going to be able to alter his shot. And then he could also be a shot blocker. So with that saying, I think the Lakers should take the gamble, select Bol. They could also look at Brandon Clarke, but I think Bol gives them the best. He feels the need that they have the most, but then, like I said, there are question marks about his fit, but it's worth the risk if you're Los Angeles. 12, Charlotte Hornets, Coby White. Kemba Walker's a free agent. Even if Kemba Walker does decide to come back, I still think they should look at Coby White. I think he can play both guard spots. I love his confidence. I love the energy that he plays with and the passion. He's a Carolina guy. It makes the most sense. Tony Parker's getting up there in age. And again, this is if Kemba does decide to come back. If Kemba does leave, let's say he goes to New York or LA or decides to just choose he's had enough of Charlotte, then you have to just start the full rebuild. And they have a pretty good young nucleus with Malik Monk. Dwayne Bacon was good. Miles Bridges. And I'm sure they're probably hoping MKG decides to decline his option for $13 million, so they can just take a lot of the money, clear out some of the cap space, and just go young. But I think Coby White would be the best pick. They could also look at Brandon Clarke. I think Miles Bridges' best position is the 4, and so drafting Brandon Clarke would be kind of redundant as far as just having another 4. At 13, I have Miami selecting Brandon Clarke. Brandon Clarke seems like the typical Miami Heat guy. Blue collar, hard worker. He's a shot blocker. He plays hard. Good athlete. May not be the best fit, but Miami just seems to just put together a group of guys that play hard and overachieve. in my opinion, I think Miami should just really tear it down. I think they're hurting themselves every year that they are competitive and fighting for this 9th spot. I think that it would be beneficial for them to just tank. I know that's not the Pat Riley way, but I think it would be beneficial for them to try to put themselves in position to win the lottery, get a top 5 pick, and then build around there. As long as they keep just overachieving with guys that are either like on their 3rd or 4th team or undrafted guys, and continuing to, you know, have the 13th and 14th pick, I think they're just running in place. They're going nowhere fast. And to round out the lottery, I have the Boston Celtics selecting NICKEIL Alexander-Walker. I know this is probably a stretch for some, but I think he's the best combo guard available that fits what they're looking for. Kyrie Irving is a free agent, as I mentioned before, and so is Terry Rozier. So Boston could be actually thin in the backcourt. And then also this pick could be moved. Like I mentioned earlier, that Boston could have 2 lottery picks, depending on how the Grizzlies pick shakes out after the actual lottery. And I think those picks could be enticing for them to move to either for Anthony Davis or to get another star. So that rounds out my lottery. I'll be back with picks 15 through 30. But thanks again for tuning in. This is Raphael with NBA Draft Junkies.